Every time I've come back into dirt biking, I've rushed in. I'd never set a long-term goal, which taught me something huge about myself, a life lesson that changed everything. It actually made me reset SMB team's revenue goals. And the lesson was, you have to fall in love with the infinite game. I'm not just on this temporary schedule of what I want to do this week. No, I'm in love with the process.
Now, if you look at business, when you make business mistakes, is that the same? Are you either trying to like rush into things too fast?
100%.
Interesting.
So that impulsiveness has probably costed me millions of dollars in business.
But how do you balance it? Because that impulsiveness also makes you sharp. So like, how do you find the right mix of like, is it knowing when to go all in?
I think it's knowing your opposition. If I'm going into a completely different business or expanding the company in some way, and I don't have a grasp on pros, cons, challenges, opportunities of going into that, probably a little too early. Warren Buffett has a saying, he never invests in things he doesn't understand. So this is the beginning of, what are we calling it? The Bill Hauser Podcast?
Bill Hauser Podcast.
Yeah, something like that.
Growth is a minimum requirement.
Yeah, so we thought about names for this. So this is the first episode of, I don't know, Bill Hauser Podcast, How to Get Rich Quick Podcast, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter what the name is. It matters that we're starting. That's the key. And we have, as he preferably has to be called, BC. So this is our creative director here at SMB team. So he's in charge of all of our content that goes out. And we're going to have BC in on the first episode, maybe, depending on, his fans, you, and whether, you demand him to become a guest. Maybe he'll just become a staple in the program, but if
we'll
you don't,
see. Might get too ahead of ourselves.
We'll have to see. You got to comment. Okay. Got to comment on this video or on the podcast for us to know. So this podcast is all about, you already mentioned it. Growth is a minimum requirement is kind of like the overall gist, right? So, is this camera? And by the way, don't cut any of this out.
Yeah. Okay.
I want people to see what it's like starting a podcast. All right. So if I talk to you like this?
You're probably best if you have a little bit of a side angle. We'll get more cameras in here though.
All right. But then I can't be fully authentic.
Yeah. I think, probably be good.
Hey, you listening, can you call me right now?
If you're talking to me, look at me. And if you're talking to them, you can look at the...
Okay.
A lot of prep.
So this whole concept is about growth as a minimum requirement, which is one of our company's core values, SMB team. And what that means to me is that you're growing in every area of your life. Wherever you've stopped growing is an area where you've stopped learning, you've stopped improving. And it's not just growth for growth's sake. It's growth because my core belief is that everyone needs to be on a learning journey in the areas of their life that are most important to them. And so we're going to talk about a ton of different concepts on this podcast, anywhere from spirituality all the way to health and fitness. But we're also going to go, since it's really my forte, around concepts on how to scale a business and how I've scaled my own company from 0 to 130 full-time employees in 7 years as a 33-year-old smart ass, as people would say. And how we actually pulled that off and became the fastest growing company in our industry 3 years in a row. So inevitably that's going to slip its way in throughout these episodes. But this is designed to be a platform where I can finally be myself.
I agree.
Finally, instead of scripting everything out and
sterile, Bill.
When we tried to do when we were doing our YouTube binge and we were like trying to make direct to camera long forms.
Yeah.
Are you looking to bend it in 3 steps? Well, watch this video and don't skip it. And I just started doing that. I was just like, dude, this just isn't me.
I think the best opportunity is just to let your best when you're talking or with your clients or whatever. I think capturing that and letting you just be yourself and not trying to put you in some kind of a box is where you perform the best. So,
and BC sits right across from my office. So if there's anyone, actually Jen's behind the camera too, if there's anyone who knows who I really am, it's probably Jen and BC, and probably Brandon will start coming in on these as well, our COO of the company. So the topic that we're going to dive into today, and we have no idea where it's going to take us, is the topic of the importance of having outlets, right? So I think success addiction is a real addiction. It's a better addiction than a lot of other addictions. You know about that, right?
I do.
And our goal with this podcast is to just be completely vulnerable about aspects of our lives. And one thing that that's probably a little odd about me is, and I'd love for you to talk about some of your outlets as well, and the importance of it. But I think one of my big outlets is I basically very competitively race dirt bikes, and I simultaneously am running a rapidly growing company, and how am I able to balance these two things? And it's a question I've got multiple times, but I've never really actually unpacked it, and how I don't actually look at these things as balance. I don't have to balance work and the things I love doing on the side, like dirt biking. To me, it's really about blend. But we're gonna try and unpack, what does it mean to have an outlet? Why is it so important? Why is it not actually a distraction from your success? It's actually a fuel for your success. Because success addiction is this whole, and I say this, tongue in cheek, but success porn is a real thing, right? If when you go on, social media, everyone's driving a Ferrari. Everyone has this 3-step system on how to succeed, right? And it creates this unconscious effect where you feel like if you're not grinding 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that people are getting ahead of you, or maybe you're doing it wrong, And
I think you can also go into overdo good things. And I do that a lot. I'll trade a hard thing for a hard thing. So if I want to do something, for example, if I don't want to work or something like that, I might do something harder. I'll go into editing harder, but I just have to have the discipline to choose what I actually need to do and have balance, because even if you're doing good things, you can overdo it. And it takes me to places where I'm not the best version of myself.
Yeah. That's why I think you have to understand that the first concept is success addiction is a real thing. First, acknowledge that. And then second, understand that overcompensation is typically the sign that you're going into kind of an addictive area, right? In terms of going too far into success addiction, and you start overcompensating in other, in that area of your life, and making justifications as to why you're working 80 hours a week.
Do you think you did that too? When everyone was, everyone knows Bill's a dirt bike rider, but you were heavy into business for years, and then you want to get back into dirt bike riding. Yeah. Do you think you overdid it when you first? I think you have a nice balance now.
Yeah.
But when you first went into dirt biking again, do you think you maybe did do it too much, too fast?
When I first went into it?
No. When you first went into it now as a professional.
When I was a kid, now this is the crap that really pisses me off. But when I was a kid and I grew up racing dirt bikes, I thought it was going to be my calling at one point in time. Even though it was kind of delusional, because I was never going to actually be a top pro. But I never really trained. I had one riding coach that trained me for a few weeks, and I didn't really take it seriously. Right. I just relied on natural talent. And everything that I teach, business owners, all of our clients now, I literally was violating all of my own advice. And part of me wonders, had I actually taken it seriously, would I have actually succeeded? Who knows? But back then, no, I was not going all in on it. I was just relying on my talent. When I got back into it a couple of years later, to answer your question, not a couple of years later, when I went to college, I went through extreme anxiety disorder. I was all screwed up. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. So riding was out of the option. I was out of money. There was no way I could have ridden. My family was broken up. We went bankrupt. There was no way.
Is that why you stopped?
Yeah, that's why I stopped. And then
because
when I graduated school and I actually started, when I got back in the riding the first time, it was after 6 or 7 years I hadn't ridden at all. So I went through all of school, got my first job, quit that job, and then got my first sales job. And that's when I made my first 6 figures in a year. And that's when I finally had the financial constraints taken off me. That's when I said, no, I didn't get
with dirt biking though, or you're not even complacent. I guess you just gave it up though. You didn't even. It's not even.
No, I gave it up because I had to. I had no money.
Okay.
But I'm saying 7 years after that. 7 years after I gave it up, and I went through college, and I got my first sales job, and I started crushing it. That was when I got back into it, and I took it really seriously. Now, this is the funny thing. A lot of people don't know this. When I became the number one salesperson at yellowpages.com, I was racing dirt bikes full time.
I didn't know that.
On the side.
Okay.
Like I had virtual assistants. I was delegating my sales, like all my appointment setting to. So I'm riding dirt bikes on the side then, and I'm number one in a 3,000 sales rep company.
So you think it was helping you?
To me, it was helping me because I was so energized.
I feel like that's what I see now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like now you're at a point now where, I don't know, like before you got back in, like now, like 2024, when you're dirt biking, you seem after a race or whatever that week, it's like, I don't know, you seem calmer or more focused. And it's like when you've had too much work, it's like you need dirt biking, you have too much dirt biking. It's like you kind of get back in. It seems like you found like the right mix that like, I don't know, you do seem positive and I mean, you're always positive, energized, but like you really
there was a chapter though. There was a chapter when I started SMB where like it was not good energy. Like
I heard that. I didn't know you then, but I heard you were like almost like manic. Like you were just
Yeah.
Like you're always positive and like but you were.
It was like desperate, manic, because it was survival. Like when you start a business, it's really scary because you have no backing. And I went all in on it. I quit my job. I had no plan B. But
so like, how did you change that energy?
Those first 2 years, there would have been no way I could have raced because I was in survival impulse. Once I got out of survival impulse, that's when I reintroduced racing, and that was when. So I was working sales. I started racing again, and then I quit my sales job, started SMB team, and when I started SMB team, I didn't race for another 2 years. So I took like 2.5 years off, really. Then once I started getting out of that survival emotional state, I went back into dirt biking because I felt like I got this. I can actually survive. You know,
what was the scariest thing? Like what, or like real or perceived at that time? What was your biggest fear when you were starting SMB?
Running out of money. Or
was that a real fear?
Actually, deep down, it was being a fraud.
Okay,
that was the deepest one.
So it's funny. Running out of money is actually probably a real problem, whereas being a fraud is probably not a real
fake problem. Yeah. It was just that I'm gonna be bankrupt just like my family.
I got you.
You know, and all this is just a hoax. And for the first 4 years in SMB, I had this voice in my head that said, well, we grew this year, but maybe it's all just a hoax.
Now, do you still have, like, you know, even though we're growing, do you still have those fears? I mean, because I feel like those are fears that not at all.
Nope.
Interesting.
Not at all. Yeah, but it probably took to really get rid of them maybe like 5.5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Where I actually just started believing myself.
And how did you do it? Like, what actually made you? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that and they don't know how to. Like, they want to.
Well, I think this is an important part about finding an outlet. It's really hard to find an outlet when you're in survival mode and you feel like you don't feel security. Like if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, lowest level of survival needs, if your survival needs are threatened, then it's really hard to go on to something outside of those needs. Because it's just like if your leg got chopped off, right? All you would be worried about is surviving, right? You would have no other focus. If you're out of money or, you know, you lose your only client in your business and you're, you know, those feelings supersede the ability to get to that self-transcendence level, which is where you can focus on things way outside of survival. So
it's almost like those things like if you're hesitant or you're scared, you're timid in business, is it almost like you're trying to lean in to something that you're good at purposefully to like almost remind you almost like is that what you're trying to do? Like what should be the goal of somebody's outlet and how should they choose the right outlet for themselves? I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think, and I read this from a book called Play, and I forget what here, I'll give you the exact title. So Play book. The subtitle of the book it's called Play, How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul. And it's by Stuart Brown. And actually, this book is what caused me, this book and another book called Rest, were the two books that actually sparked me originally to get back into dirt biking. And so the book Play taught me that most learning actually happens through play. Like, what do kids do all day? Play, right? It's all play, right? Why? Why do they play? Why do puppies play more than adult dogs? Why do young anything, like young species, play?
Yeah.
They play to learn.
Yeah.
And to learn in a jousting environment where survival consequences aren't high.
Yeah.
Right? So play, and so the book opened up my mind to play, because I was not playing when I started SMB team. I was not playing in the first 12 months when I started at yellowpages.com. I was surviving. There was no room for play. I was success addicted, right? No room for play. Picked up this book actually when I was at Yellow Pages, read it, and I was like, wait a second, maybe, because I didn't feel good at the end of the workday. I was succeeding on the outside, but inside I didn't feel good in those first 12 months. Same thing, first 12 months in SMB, first 12 months of my sales job. External success was great. Internal success was low by the day. Read this book Play, and I'm like, wait a second, maybe I need an outlet. Maybe I need something where I can just play again and not have these survival needs. And then that's when I picked up dirt bike. And it said in the book that typically reigniting, like it's like the science of play. This guy's, I think, a doctor. I know he's a doctor. He's an MD. And he talks about how some of the best things to play with are things that you are naturally gifted at.
Sure.
And so I thought to myself, oh, okay, well, dirt biking's definitely number one on the list. Now, music to me was something I had to work really hard at. When I was playing music in the past, it didn't come naturally to me. It was more something I had to work really hard for, and it felt forced.
But dirt biking
felt natural.
Well, doesn't business feel natural to you too?
Yeah, business.
Because that's
natural.
the other thing too. I think when people hear like fun or play, they think that's synonymous with like not working. Whereas I actually think you're best, and I know I'm best because I'm a creative, and it's like when I actually am having fun and doing like having fun doesn't mean you're not getting work done. Yeah. And I think when you're at your best, and sometimes might mean that, but I think that when you're having fun and you're working to objectives, like those don't have to be mutually exclusive things.
Yeah. What do you play with?
I have to do
That's a funny question.
If I'm like I always have to go back and forth between if I'm working on like edits or videos, if I'm in like business edits and videos, I have to have a passion project I'm working on that's like just for me. Yeah. And if it's not just video, I will go to like music. So like if I'm going from video, I usually go to guitar. And when I have too much guitar, I get burnt out there, I come back. And that's usually a good back and forth where I but the key is to just not like burn out, because I would do it so much I'd burn out. Yeah. So like trying to achieve balance for actual balance versus like doing it just because I overdid it. Yep. And when I do that, I feel like I'm a more well-rounded person and creative. I just feel like I'm better and I have better perspectives and everything, So
the other book is Rest. I didn't want to forget this. Is when you get more done, or why you get more done when you work less. Work less is the name of the book, Rest. And what it studies is that. Now, it's a BS concept. Like I don't believe in the 4-hour work week concept or stuff like that. But the actual science in this book, Rest, studies what do high performers do when they're not working. That's what the book studies, and it was really fascinating.
So what does that look like for you?
So, but this book talks about they not just me, but what hundreds and hundreds of successful people do when they're not working, right? And the common denominator is they all have recharge rituals, right? So I looked at this and I combined it with the concepts from Play, and in the book Rest, there's a concept called active rest. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And active rest is actually a more regenerative type of rest for some people than passive rest. Passive rest, sitting down watching Netflix. Yeah. Active rest, getting your heart moving, doing something physically intensive, really challenging, right? I tend to get more recharged from active rest than I do passive rest. I still need both. I'd still need some passive rest and some active rest, right? So for you, like doing a video project would be a little bit more passive than playing music, right? But there's all spectrums of passive versus active rest. So as soon as I learned this topic and realized I wasn't really that happy, and I realized that play makes you happy and rest recharges you, that's when I started experimenting with outlets. Now, the other thing is I had watched this interview from Shaun White, the snowboarder and skateboard Olympic champion, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, how does somebody win 2 different Olympic gold medals, like, or 2 different X Game gold medals in 2 different sports, right? And what he said in this interview, which blew my mind, was when he inevitably, after 6 months of snowboarding and at the level he does, he gets a little burnout on the snowboard. Kind of like what you said with going from creative, passion projects on video to music. He gets burned out on the snowboard. It's cold. He doesn't like going to ski resorts anymore. So he transitions to skateboarding. So the part of the reason he was able to become the best in each of those sports in his area in which he mastered those sports is because he was always recharged when he entered each sport. He didn't just do what the other snowboarders did, which was only snowboard, take time off. And you kind of still dread it a little bit when you come back into it because you did it so much last season, but you're never really resetting your focus, right? So,
and those kind of those are like cross training kind of things, so they probably supercharged. Yeah, they're similar. You got like muscle memory.
It's not badminton and then
chess.
Yeah. It's like completely different.
But that could be a benefit. I guess figuring out what's best for you and just like what actually derives that outcome.
Yeah. So that's why I think like when people talk about the success addiction stuff, like I actually think when you are working a lot just for work's sake, out of insecurity or out of covering stuff up or whatever, like that you're overcompensating somewhere, right? And as soon as I catch myself doing that, I'm like, okay, I know I need an outlet. So for me, like anything I do, I have to be obsessed at. So like with the dirt biking stuff, like I could show you my workout stuff for this week. So I do.
You just pull it up right here.
Yeah, I do extremely, extremely thorough stuff. So like this week, I've tracked my heart rate. I wear a polar heart rate monitor. I have an app called MTF Online, which is like this Millsaps training facility, which is like a famous training facility in the dirt bike world. I have MX workouts. I have multiple hour-long cardio workouts per week. I monitor my heart rate when I ride. I use lap timing software, which tells my lap times.
And this is just like like in any area of your life where you're obsessed, you have stuff that looks like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you have systems and processes. Yes. It's not.
I have a coach.
Yeah. That's true. Like you have a very similar setup in all aspects. You got your coach here, you got your systems, you got this. Over here, you got your coach, you got your systems, you got this. And it's funny because you really do if there's someone who can teach you how to do something better, it's like you're going to go learn from that person and apply it. And you do that in every aspect of your life, which is interesting. It seems to work.
Yeah. So let me walk you through some of this because this is the more obsessive level. So first of all, I have a coach. I'm looking through my calendar right now. So I have a coach named Frenchie, and Frenchie is this like OG pro racer.
How old is he?
He's probably 50.
I see. So he's retired and
no, he still races. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there like a Legends?
Yeah, there's like an age group class that he does in the amateur circuit. He got second place at nationals this year.
So what was he in his prime?
He's probably like a top 20.
So like a legit
guy.
Yeah,
he was like a legitimate pro.
I got you.
But not like the top 10 dudes that make millions of dollars a year and stuff like that.
And that's kind of like in that field. It's only the top guys get
only the top 10 really get the big salaries and bonuses.
So you got to love it.
You got to love it. Yeah. So he loves it, and he only lives like 20 minutes from me. So when I came back this season...
Well, how'd you even find him?
Oh, I've known of him forever.
Oh, you've known him?
Yeah, we've known each other for 15 years.
So he's known as the dude.
When I was on my come up, when I first was riding, the first year I went to nationals, like I was riding with him some weeks every week for like months, like during the summer. But I was super young.
What does he do?
I was 15 years old. So So basically, when I came back this season, what I did was I reflected on what are all the things, and this ties into how what you learn through play from your outlet ties into other areas of your life, right? And you actually learn faster when you have an outlet and you're in a state of play, just like the book says.
Agreed.
So this season I came back and I wondered, why have because when I was at yellowpages.com, I got back into dirt biking. Then I took 2 years off, came back. Then I burned myself out again, took 2 years off, came back. Then I took 2 years off again. So I was like, what the hell is with this process of me going all in and then giving up for 2 years and stopping for 2 years? And I realized that there's either like an injury or a mistake that I made on the dirt bike that caused me to step away from the sport.
Was it like a burnout? Did you start to like hate it?
Yeah, it was a little bit of that. It was more that I didn't have a plan.
Do you feel like you weren't good enough? Was there a component of that at all? Or is it just like
no.
If you feel like if you don't have a plan, you just don't want to do it?
It's just I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anyone to hold me accountable, so it was easy to just escape.
Interesting.
Right? So this time when I got back in the ride, and I texted him first, actually before I started riding, I was like, hey man, I think I'm going to come back in the riding this year. I'm going to try for nationals. And I'm going to I'm going to want you to train me. So basically he said, okay. I drove up to his house. This is right when I first got on the bike. Drove up to his house, rode at his backyard track. And it was like the most liberating experience ever. Like he broke down all these false beliefs that I'd carried with me for my 15 years of racing.
So is he like a hard coach? Is he like a blunt coach? Like how does he?
Yeah, he's pretty blunt.
Yeah.
But he broke down all these false beliefs that I've carried with me for over 15 years of racing. And like, I never had anyone challenge these beliefs. Like insane.
So the things that were holding you back, they're more mental than they were. Like it's not
mainly, I would
techniques
say
shit. It's not that.
Success in anything is 80% psychology, 20% strategy.
Yeah.
So 80% was all just things I believed, right? Like, so once he unpacked all those things, then it was like, holy crap, I now know how much I don't know.
Right.
And that was where like I fell back, because I always say you can't be a master at something you're not curious at.
For sure.
Right? If you're not curious about it, then you can't master it.
Yeah.
I wasn't curious about it before. Like the last times I got back into the sport, I wasn't curious. I wasn't curious about the nuances. Like I'll bring you through like very specific nuances, like my foot positioning on the pegs.
Yeah, you were saying this.
Like pointing my toes in, having not just my knees squeeze the bike, but my toes squeeze the bike.
Just like a bunch of micro changes.
Like things like, specific body positioning on the bike with like unlocking your hips and the attack position and initiation. When you accelerate, your body goes first before you accelerate, so that you're anticipating the bike to jerk you back, right? Like those are 4 things of like 150 things that I'm now extremely curious about. Cardio training. I did my F45 stuff, but I didn't know how hard of a cardio sport it was. In 15 years, I never tracked my heart rate while racing. Never. In 15 years.
Yeah.
I never knew that your heart rate average when you're racing is 180 beats a minute. 180. That's zone 5 cardio for 15 to 20 minutes. I didn't even know what zone 5 was.
Are these things your competitors knew? Are these things the best are working on?
The best are working on.
Got it.
Yeah, for sure. They say this stuff in their sleep. They know what base building cardio is. They know what sprint cardio is. Like I didn't know any of this shit. All I knew was I'm going to show up to my F45 group fitness class and just work out. And then that'll prepare me enough.
So now this is more specific to what you need to perform at your highest level in motocross.
Yeah, not just more specific, completely different than my original assumptions about preparing for the sport.
So then did that give you any insights into like all like did you take any of those, and did that give you any like revelations in the business side of things? Or how does that all work?
Anywhere I don't have a coach is typically an area where I'm not improving. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to forget that. Like I stopped improving on my nutrition. Why? Because I haven't been talking with my nutrition coach.
Is it months. Like you think you just got it and then you kind of get
Yeah,
complacent.
It's all just ignorance.
I got you.
Once you get into a standard, I think there's a trade-off here, but like the big insight for me is until you get into a flow that you're constantly improving within,
right.
That's when you don't need a coach.
Got you.
But a flow can be misinterpreted, right? If you're crushing it but you're not improving, you're not in flow.
Yeah.
Flow is you're crushing it and you keep improving, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that. So I got a coach. That was the first thing. Then the second thing is I made many mistakes this season. Many mistakes racing and practicing.
Yep.
And because I now have a coach, I was able to, for the first time ever, learn from my mistakes. Mm-hmm. Why? Because when you don't have a coach, it's hard to reflect on where you went wrong.
You think like maybe with the problems that need to be solved, or maybe the wrong ones, or like, you think you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
So I'll give you an example. So I'll talk through the story of 2 weeks ago.
Well,
right?
When you got
the
incident?
Yeah, the incident. So recap for this season. So like, actually, no, let me go.
Recap, because I don't think like you came back in cold like about a year ago, right?
It was about like 6 months ago, maybe. What month is it?
Maybe like closer to like 8 months now, 10 months.
April.
Like yeah. Okay.
May, June, July, August, September, October, November. So it's been about 6.5 months. Okay. Right. So I got back on my bike in April.
Okay.
My second or third ride on the bike, you and I were actually at the track.
Oh, you're talking about that one. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So if I go back to then, this is my first time on the bike in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So
I get set up all my gear.
Yeah, we go down this track called Field of Dreams.
Leave work to do it.
Yeah, leave work to do it. We're gonna create a vlog and film it.
High level projects need to be.
My first lap on this freaking Pee-wee track that I went on because I was a dumbass. My first lap, my bike swaps out and I break my wrist.
Yeah.
And
you were so defeated. Like you were just
It was terrible. It was such a stupid rinky-dink little spill out. Like it wasn't bad. It wasn't.
It's like better if like you would have like full out just crashed or something.
Like all I did was save myself.
Yeah.
And I got this hyperextension and I broke the triquetrum bone or whatever. Yeah. So then I had to take off like 3 weeks of riding.
Yep.
And this is right when qualifiers were because I wanted to go to nationals, right? So then there's only one local qualifier left, and it's the week before the regional championship. So there's a 2-step qualifying process. First, you have to qualify at the local level. Once you qualify at the local level, you then qualify for regionals, and then the top 6 at regionals go to nationals. So my local qualifier, area qualifier, was the week before the regional.
Yeah. And
this is like my first race back in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So talk about giving yourself no time to prepare.
Yeah.
Right? So I go into the race. I actually did really, really good at the race. It was my first ride back with the race.
I remember you telling me.
I felt really, really good. Second and third place. Like it was solid. And then I go to the regional the next weekend. And that's where the fastest of the fastest of the fastest go. The regionals, right? And I got smoked. Like I was probably running 9th or 10th in most of my motos. I got 8th in one moto, and then I was running 9th or 10th, and then I fell.
Yeah.
Both of the times I was running 9th or 10th, I fell.
Right.
So why did I fall?
It's not like when you're like overdoing it and you weren't like you were trying to like overcompensate.
So all these lessons, ready? First, why did I fall when I was in 8th or 9th or 9th or 10th? Mm-hmm. Why did I fall? Well, it's a track or this or it just happened. That's how I used to label stuff like that.
Right.
But now that I had a coach, it was no. I fell in right-hand corners, which means the right side of my body was weak. Number 2, the reason I fell is because my cardio fitness wasn't on track. So when I was out of breath, my technique dropped.
Yep.
And then I wasn't able to control the bike better.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Right? Then I didn't qualify for nationals. I missed it by 3 spots nationally. You were actually in here when I was checking. All day, right? People are dropping off the list. I ended up 3rd on the national alternate list. So if 2 more people would have dropped out, I would have made it to nationals. But I didn't make it. And why? Why didn't I make it? Well, dude, I gave myself one freaking race before the regional, and I gave myself no backup plan at all. I didn't prepare at all.
You say that now, though, but you kind of beat yourself up. Like, you didn't have that mindset right after. Like, you were, like, kind of punishing yourself a little bit, like not being good enough, right?
Yeah.
But, like, was that a good learning? Like,
it was.
Maybe that was, like, the perfect thing that had to happen to you.
Because right after that, I texted Frenchie. And
that's the catalyst.
I said, Frenchie, my goal is to qualify for Loretta's next year.
Yeah.
And he said, basically the first thing he told me is if every racer that contacted him the day after Loretta's the prior year to prepare for Loretta's next year, then 100% of his racers would make it. But what happens is most people contact him 2 weeks before the regional, like I did.
And they just want to...
And panic and want to make it this year on last minute. But he said, now that you're giving yourself an entire year to prepare, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So that was another lesson. Every time I've come back into dirt biking, I've rushed in.
Yeah.
I'd never set a long-term goal, which taught me something huge about myself, a life lesson that changed everything. It actually made me reset SMB team's revenue goals and all of the goals that I had held deep within me. And the lesson was you have to fall in love with the infinite game. The infinite game. I'm not just on this temporary schedule of what I want to do this week or what I want to accomplish next month. Yeah. No, I'm in love with the process.
Yeah.
I was never in love with the process. I was in love with the end result.
Yep.
And I was so panicky to get that end result with giving myself 1 week of preparation.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. So I think most people probably do.
Yeah.
And just everyone's so hard on themselves. You don't get like, you give yourself any chance and like, you try for something hard and you fail and then you beat yourself up. When it's like, you should, hey dude, like you actually finished 8th.
Yeah.
After not even trying, but I know me, I would be like, whatever that would be relative in my field, I'd feel like I do the same things. I beat myself up and it's not the way to grow though.
Yeah. So
and it's ego just manifesting in another area, really. Yeah. It's like, oh, boo-hoo, but to your point, it's like you just make a plan and get after it and fix it.
Yep. So then fast forward after that. So then I'm in this purgatory basically because I didn't qualify. Now I have to wait an entire year for the next qualifiers. So then I set this other goal of I want to win this local race. It's called Kawasaki Race of Champions.
Yeah.
And a relatively easy race for me to win because it's like more local.
Yeah.
And so I start preparing for it. Week 1 of preparation, I'm at riding practice. I land on someone. I do 2 weeks, no problems. 3rd week, I collide with someone.
Yeah.
Then take 2 weeks, get back on. The week after that, some dude cuts in front of me on the air. I won't say his name.
Yeah.
Cuts in front of me on the air, and I get a hematoma on my back.
Yep.
And this huge bruise.
That was nasty.
Right?
I didn't get pictures of it. If we have pictures, I'll throw it up.
Yeah, that was bad. Why did all these things happen? Now, because I had a coach, I was able to reflect for the first time. It's the biggest insight I've ever had around what causes injuries.
Yep.
Impatience causes injuries. All of my injuries over the last 10 years on the dirt bike, all my injuries were caused by impatience on my part and involving another rider. Right? Impatience. Meaning, when I get behind someone, I'm not the hunter, right? What do I mean? In dirt biking, and this also applies to life, in dirt biking, when you're racing someone and you get up to someone's back wheel, sometimes the worst thing to do is immediately pass that person.
Why?
Because you haven't studied anything about their riding. You don't know what parts of the track they're slow at, fast at. So if you just pass them right away, you don't gain any intelligence about their riding. This is someone who's close to your speed.
Yeah.
A hunter would track down their prey, know their prey's habits, know when they should strike, know when to shoot. Yeah. Right? Me, I just shot my shot right in the moment, heat of the moment, always. And that's what caused 100% of my injuries over the last 7 years.
Interesting. Now, if you look at business, when you make business mistakes, is that the same shit? Are you either trying to like rush into things too fast?
100%.
Interesting.
Yep. And so that impulsiveness has probably costed me millions of dollars in business.
But how do you balance it? Because that impulsiveness also makes you sharp. So like, how do you find the right mix of like going in all in, and like, you know, is it knowing when to go all in? Is it?
I think it's knowing your opposition.
It's exactly kind of what you're saying, right? It's like tracking on the dirt bike behind, so it's kind of
Right.
like trying to find that context in other areas of your life, and
have to know your opposition. You can't just, if I'm going into a completely different business or expanding the company in some way, and I don't have a grasp on the pros, cons, challenges, opportunities of going into that, probably a little too early.
Yeah.
Because Warren Buffett has a saying, he never invests in things he doesn't understand.
Interesting. Yep, makes sense.
That's the greatest investor of all time, right? So that's and the patience thing is like not everything has to happen right now.
Yeah, I should.
And only attack on the things that actually matter.
Yeah,
you don't have to win every battle.
Is that tough for you to balance?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because
but that's true leadership, I would say. Like that, like knowing what to actually, because like you can do like the ego thing, like I'm just gonna do this, I'm gonna force it, and like sure that works sometimes, but like I think the real strength, the real leadership is doing the latter. It's like let me take a step back here.
And here's another thing he taught me. He said he taught me the hunter concept. I never heard that before.
Yeah.
I never heard it phrased like that. He said, "Oh, Bill, haha." He like laughed at me on the phone. He's like, "Oh, yeah, you don't know the hunter concept." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Bill, the last 7 injuries you just broke down with me that you've had on the dirt bike, you just weren't being the hunter." I was like,
"But you thought you were, right? Like you kind of thought you were probably a prime alpha hunter dirt bike rider."
Maybe. I didn't even use that word.
Yeah.
I just was in the moment.
Not even your vocabulary.
Yeah. But 100% of my injuries came from this mindset. And so he said, "You don't know about the hunter. You broke it down." Then he said, "Bill, how do you lose?" I said, "What?" This is like Jackie Chan shit. I'm like,
question.
"What?" Like Bruce Lee.
Yeah, how do you lose?
He said, "How do you lose?" And I couldn't answer the question. He was like, "When do you accept that you're going to get second place?"
And I imagine that's like a hard question specifically for like you,
yeah,
Bill Hauser, to answer.
Yeah.
Because you don't like losing. Like no one does.
But getting second place is sometimes the smartest decision because not all races are created equal. Like this race had no consequence.
Yeah.
The race that I raced 2 weeks ago that I fell at, I won the first moto.
Yeah.
I easily would have won the overall, but I fell. And on my first race, I literally fell on the first lap, went back to 17th place, passed my way all the way up to like 5th in 2 laps. And that was the problem. I was being way too aggressive to pass too many people too quickly. And had I just been a little more calculated,
chill
take my breath, I probably would have actually won all of it. Right?
Can you answer that question now though? Like how do you lose? Or are you still trying to figure that? Are you trying to figure that answer out a little bit?
I think it's a dark hole for me, and that means that there's a lot to learn about it.
So you're still figuring out how to answer.
I'm still figuring out how to.
Now, is that answer the same in sports and business, or are those somewhat different? Okay, no, it's the same answer.
You can't win 100% of everything. You just can't. So,
but what I'm wondering is when your coach asks you how do you lose, do you feel that your answer will be the same for business and sports? Like when you figure out whatever that answer is, that will be the same.
100%. All of the answers are the same.
Okay.
All the answers on sports to success in sports are going to be.
Well, that's what I notice about you too. Is like that I admire is like you. When you learn something, you apply it to your life. You apply it to your business. You apply it to like your play. Or your like you seem to be good at taking lessons from whatever area of your life and applying it to you're good at extracting the common denominator from that lesson and applying it to all aspects of your life and others in your life. Like you're like, hey, I learned this, and it's like you want to like share it. So I think that's cool. But it seems like you've been able to develop. Like with the dirt biking and like your family and your business, to me, it seems like you have it just feels like a very authentic, natural life you've created. And it seems like you're still working, like sometimes maybe you make it too much here, but it seems like for the most part, you know what you want. Like, I think you know the life you want to live.
That's what's really interesting. Like yesterday I was talking to this guy that works with a ton of successful business owners. We had a Zoom call, and he was saying most business owners he talks to that are, these are businesses, his average business he talks to is profiting $2 to $10 million a year in profit per year. That's the average business owner he talks to.
No joke.
And he said the average business owner he talks to is wildly burned out and wants out. That's like 90% of the people he talks to, and he talks to a lot. And I laughed on the call. He's like, "Why are you laughing?" I was just like, "Dude, I can't relate to that. I'm just sorry. I'm not burnout, and I don't want out. Like, I'm excited. I love what I'm doing every day. I love the challenge of what I'm doing every day." But I think, like, why is that the case? Because in my first year of SMB and the years I didn't have an outlet, I actually did feel like not as sustainably happy.
So you're like faking it.
It could be partially part of it is the existence of the outlet, but also part of it is the health benefits that come alongside it. The thing I love about dirt biking is it forces extreme health and like, for example,
dude, for sure. Like I get that.
If
like,
I did music,
you don't have a choice.
I wouldn't have
it's like
to work
if you want
out.
a success,
Yeah.
you like that. You got to be that's. Well, let me ask you a question though, because do you ever fake happiness? Like when you're not happy, do you ever fake it, or like if you're not happy? Oh, really? Yeah. So you put on a good face, and I was not sure of that. So okay, you're good at like
100%. Yeah. I think faking happiness is probably most people would frown upon it, but I think it's the fastest way to get happy again.
Interesting. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, just like will your way into happiness.
Yeah, no, I actually see you do
act
that.
as a happy person would act.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the challenge, I don't have to do that much anymore because I've formed habits around meditation, exercise, prioritization, scheduling.
And that's what I learned. Like the more you're able to set those systems up and like have that, the less like oscillation you're gonna do. Like you're not just gonna be back and forth. Like it's gonna be more like this. When you have those problems. But until you have that system, like I mean, at least speaking for myself, I will oscillate. But I think that you did a great job of having those bumpers in your life that keep you, where that systems, people, combination of all the above that keep you where you need to be.
Like this sounds weird to say, but you can feel happy like all the time.
Yeah.
Like it sounds unreasonable. Everyone wants to create a pity party argument. Like, oh, but don't you have bad days? Don't you have this? No, you could will your way into anything.
Yeah.
If you wanted to will your way into daily depression, you could do it.
No, for sure. I've done it.
If you wanted to will your way into daily anxiety, I've done it for years. You can do it. If you wanted to will your way into like consistent positivity and happiness,
like other people do that.
Yeah.
And they've achieved that. So like when people say that it's and like that you can't do it, well, I always look at people's like, oh well, that person's doing it. So like it is achievable, but to your right, people will come down to like their excuses and just create that reality because they don't want to take the actions needed to change
the key is to get to the point where you're not hiding anything.
Yeah, I've learned that's tough.
That's like the ultimate feeling of freedom and happiness is just I have nothing to hide. Like I can be my authentic self. I remember this concept, insight I had when I was in college. There's this guy, George Holvass. I wonder what he's doing now, but he was like a low-key philosopher. And like we were talking about, like, it was the first time I think I told someone about the fact that I listened to Tony Robbins or something like that. And I did it like privately prior to that. Like I didn't want to tell anyone.
Was like weak or something?
Thought self-help meant that I had a problem. I needed help, right?
Yeah.
And I shared it with him. He's like, oh yeah, like, he wasn't fazed by it. And this is like a deep, philosophically in tune person that I met in school.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I felt like I can be open about the fact that I'm interested in personal development and I'm not going to be criticized by it.
That's funny because now it's like so much of who you are.
It's my entire business. It's like my identity.
It's crazy.
Right? But I hid it.
Well, is it hard for you to hide who you are to even because I like that you'll just like freestyle or dance or sing or you just be yourself in your office.
Yeah.
Like, was that hard to like do? Like, not now it's not hard. But at first, like, was showing, like, was being you 100% of the time ever hard for you to do?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
How did you get there?
When I was growing up, like, this is a very interesting concept. So when I was racing dirt bikes, I was, and when I was in school, I was like class clown. That's
shocking.
Even worse in the dirt bike world.
Yeah.
Like,
you're compensating for
overcompensating
like your
crazy
fears and shit. Yeah.
And that's what I was known for. Yeah. Like bad, crazy slapstick, humor. Constant. Never having a serious conversation with me would be like, 1 in a million chance.
Like someone has to die like at a funeral.
Yeah.
That was like me.
Yeah. Insane. Yeah. And this is years after I stopped racing, I got a message from someone I used to race dirt bikes with. And this dude messaged me and said, Bill, I just wanted to say, man, I've been watching your content and I just feel really sorry for you. It seems like, the old Billy I went by in the past, the old Billy was always telling jokes and laughing and smiling. And the new Bill is just always talking about success and nothing's ever good enough. And I feel for you, man. And I responded back to him and I said, let me tell you something. When I was saying all those jokes and being happy, slappy Billy in the past, I wasn't happy. Okay? So, while you may have been happy with all the jokes that I was telling constantly, I wasn't happy. So I don't really care that you're not happy, that I'm not.
Yeah. And that's like the classic class clown experience, at least from what people I know have done that.
Yeah.
And I was never like the full dude who did that, but I have elements of that for sure. Mm-hmm. And there's like an intrinsic sadness that they have.
Yeah.
And dude, a lot of funny, humorous people have that, like Robin Williams and people. It's like a lot of times like the happier, like the more outwardly, like, and like I don't think it's fake. I think like Robin Williams is a very like that was real, his happy like his like that he showed out, but I don't think his happiness was directed towards himself internally.
No.
And I think that's a lot of people like that. Like you truly, I think, care about people and like those shows, but that sadness was like all you in there.
Yeah. No, it was. It wasn't necessarily like I was generally speaking an upbeat person, but I had no footing on my identity. I didn't know who I was, and I compensated with that through the certainty and security of telling jokes, right? Or being the joke, being the butt of the joke was actually way better for me.
Yep.
So I told this person, like, dude, I'm happy you were happy during that phase of my life, but I wasn't. Yeah. And now, like, that was when I started, when I was at yellowpages.com, that's when I actually, for the first time, started being myself.
Yeah.
And that's like,
and what did that look like?
10 years
what
ago.
did being yourself look like?
Interested in personal development, open about it. Interested in sales, interested in business and open about it. Interested in dirt biking and open about it.
But how were you also able to keep that humorous, fun part of yourself alive while also getting that growth? Because that humorous, fun part is a huge part of who you are. But like, how do you get that right balance?
It's just who I am.
Yeah. How did you find that? Like you just.
How do you? Yeah. The balance of like humor and success. If you look at it in like two buckets, you have authenticity and success. And in a perfect world, you want to merge the two.
Yep.
You want to succeed authentically, right? So for me to succeed authentically, I have to have bouts of humor.
Sure.
Right? So it's not like how did I do that? It just is the sustainable way to success. It just feels the most effortless way to succeed. So it's a natural thing to do.
Do you think any of those things pop? Like, do you ever have like remnants of that pop up from ever like in business or even your personal life? Like where you try where you might be like inclined to like lean more back into that? And do you ever catch yourself, or is that not even like a non-issue now? Like, do you feel like you have that balance so naturally that like you don't even?
Yeah, I'd say when I make long forms.
Yeah.
When we try to make long form YouTube videos, and it's like it all has to be so professional and serious. Like
that is so true.
Yeah, that's probably the only place where it still comes out.
So I think it probably boils down to like areas in which you're not as much of an expert as you are in other areas. Because you don't do this in any area where like you're a true expert. You just don't. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like
maybe it is that. Maybe it's overcompensating in areas where I'm not an expert.
Or just maybe uncomfortable a little bit. But it's interesting how.
Yeah. So we just learned I'm not an expert at long forms. True.
Data doesn't lie.
So I think, tying together all the concepts we talked about, I don't think anybody has to feel bad about having an outlet. I think that having an outlet is probably one of the best, most sustainable ways to come back in recharged to everything that you do. And it's not a distraction. It's if it gives you more energy and fuel in your main thing, it's not a distraction.
What if somebody doesn't like have an outlet? What if they don't know their passion? Or what if their passion they feel like is no longer the thing they want to do anymore? Like they've just changed. Like, do you think there's a right way to go about finding like a new passion?
Yeah, I think it has to be authentic. Meaning like don't start playing golf just because you heard that's how you make business connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you, dirt biking is the worst way to make business connections ever.
Yeah, I've been to those tracks.
Yeah, so like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah, no,
you know,
sure.
I'm just gonna do what I love doing.
Mhm.
That's it. So I think like the hardest thing to do is to discipline yourself to do the things you actually want to do,
Right.
and not what you think is gonna. Because then it comes back to the success addiction stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
Doing it
oh,
for, like, the wrong
you're
reasons.
only doing it because you heard you could get more rich doing this or
Right.
make more connections doing this.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that you can start with just what your intuition says, and experimenting is the best way.
So what's your
Not-
life now?
not
What's your
planning.
life like now as opposed to like 6 years ago? Because you
Um,
were always the same guy, but like, you know, your approach is different. So like, what is the contrast now where you were before and where you're at now?
I'm able to just focus on bigger picture stuff. My routines are very largely the same. It's just, I don't work any more than I did
Yeah.
6 years ago. Well, the company started 7 years ago, but 6 years ago is right in the prime
Yeah.
of when I was scaling SMB and not in that good of a place.
Yeah.
6 years ago was actually, no, I'd say 6 years ago is significantly different than now, because that was
Yeah.
the grind period. That's
Yeah.
when I was probably working 16 hours a day, and
Just like hating life a little bit.
like maybe 10 hours on weekends.
yeah, it's tough.
So that was, but that's the price to pay to succeed
Yeah.
in those initial years in business. Like
Yeah.
there is a time period when you're getting started in business where you cannot have an outlet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least from my own experience, maybe other people have figured it out.
Well, probably also dependent on the business too. Like if you're trying to grow something like this,
Yeah.
probably gonna be a little tough to not put all your time and energy.
But if you could limit that to just 2 years and just
Yeah, I got you.
look at that as a trade-off, then
Yeah.
it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, 2 years to then have,
sure.
you know, something that pays you forever, quote unquote,
Yeah, yeah.
probably worth the investment.
Absolutely.
But all the shit that people talk about passive income and
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all got to add up to, like you were saying, it's like, is it adding up to happiness and what you really want? Or is it, you know, if dollars in your bank account, if that's the end goal, you know, it's one thing. But
Yeah.
like, are those dollars going up, like making you any happier?
you got to be in love with the
Yeah.
process. That's why, like, I'm not motivated by how much money I make from
Yeah.
S&B team at
Yeah.
all.
No, you like the game. and
I
the-
just want to win.
Yeah.
I want to figure out my role and then win at my
Mhm.
role. And the cool thing about being in a CEO role is your role is constantly morphing,
Yeah.
right? Like at a higher rate than any other role in the company, it morphs,
Yeah.
because you can literally go from 80% of your time on finance
Yeah.
to transition to 80% of your time on marketing, to
Yeah.
80% on data, to 80% on product strategy, to 80% on
Yeah.
branding strategy, to
And
it's
so
just
much of
this
your time I
dance.
see is like knowledge transfer. You transferring what you know to your staff
Yeah.
and to your execs and to like everybody else, and just applying these lessons that you've learned to, you know, anybody who can derive a benefit from
Yeah.
it, really.
But here's one last thing before we sign off. I want to say all successful people have the obsessive gene.
Mm.
They're obsessed about everything. Successful people are obsessed, right? And like, who was the guy? I think it was the founder of Uber that was like the top 3 Wii tennis player in the world.
Oh, was he?
Right.
No,
And like,
that's funny.
you could take so many different scenarios of people that you think are strictly focused on just their business,
Mhm.
and you'll find that behind a passionate person
Yeah.
is a person with
A
passions.
few other things going on.
They got other stuff going on just as intense as the thing they're
Mhm.
going on. If you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right? So that's what I think you'll find when you peel open the curtain and you look at what are the most successful people doing. Whatever they're doing, they're being passionate and going all in on it.
Yeah.
There's no dabbling. So, all right. So that's today's first podcast on how to create an outlet and how having an outlet helps you cure Success Addiction, and why it actually could be the key to you succeeding. So we're going to do more stuff like this. Let us know if you want us to go deeper into any topic that we discussed in this video, or anything we didn't discuss in this video in this podcast, and we will go into it in one of the next ones. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next podcast. Stay great, keep it snazzy, and
end with a song.
We're starting a podcast. It's BC's first time on camera, and he's gonna be a celebrity.